Good afternoon.
Hey, yes.
We're coming at you live.
Sasha's having some technical difficulties today, so
Oh,
bear with us. She's living her best life. We we tried the
I might
restart.
try to just sign in otherwise.
But we are here. So today I know we wanted to do some other topics, but today we couldn't pass up on celebrating International Women's Day.
Woo.
And I feel like we've heard so many different things, so many different celebrations. Can I just say, like, wow, if I were a dude, I'd want to be a woman because just all the celebrations. I mean, I was talking to Sasha and I was like, I don't know, like, is it today or is it like a whole weekend or is it the whole month?
Yeah, it was very confusing.
It's also, to me, it's like every day. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we just wanted to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a female entrepreneur and what we think about being a female entrepreneur in this day and age. And then we'll show you some resources for that. But also,
Yeah, we have a plan. Oh,
Sa-
sorry. What were you going to say?
I was saying that Sasha visited me, and if that's the photo that you see on our thumbnail, it's because she totally visited me, and it was an awesome weekend. And I'm
Yes.
still in theme.
Aw. Kat's birthday was over the weekend, so we definitely celebrated. That's also why we were slacking last week on our posts.
I
Sorry.
know. If anyone in the community was like, is this community still here? We're still here.
We were just celebrating Kat, which, I mean, International Women's Week. It made sense. So we just kind of took a break to really hone in on the theme.
As we know, I like celebrating. So
Yes. So today we're celebrating all the boss babes,
yes.
and we're asking all of them to unite as one.
If you're watching and you are a boss babe, even after our live show, please leave a comment. We're excited to
Yes.
hear from you. Maybe we'll be able to feature you in our community. So definitely let us know. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we just had one of our members start her business. So yay, adding another to the roster of female
Yes.
entrepreneurs.
It's another female duo, which I'm a fan of.
That's right. So if you guys don't know who we are, just because it's International Women's Day, we are Sasha and the Cat. And
Yeah.
we both have our own things going on for quite a while now. So, and as this community that we've also built is something new.
Yeah.
So we're excited to have you all join us if anyone's working
Which
at
is
home.
not exclusive to women. Our community welcomes everyone. It's
Yes.
not just women. Obviously, there's a special place in our heart for women-owned businesses and business owners, but everyone's welcome.
So going into that, I think that's kind of funny.
That's kind of why I said it.
I know. So basically, Sasha and I have this thought. We're very obviously like, okay, we're women, but we also, and we support all female owned, led, involved businesses. But our community is not solely for females. So I think it's interesting to have because sometimes there's like female led and then it's only targeting females. But it's female led, but it's just a community for small biz entrepreneurs.
It's human led and then female led.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like we don't really market.
That's how me and Kat see it. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not like, we're a female led, like that's not our tagline. We just happen to be two girls.
Right. And I guess that's kind of why our thumbnail and like our title of this video is being a boss babe in 2021, because we feel like the whole boss boss babe movement, or kind of just the emphasis on like being a women owned business or changed. Or a lot more
Sasha's gonna have to talk a little slower because her internet is crappy.
is it stopping completely?
I think when you go, we lost her face. Oh, she's back. If anyone would like to donate a port to Sasha, we would be forever grateful. That's weird. I feel like it's gotten worse over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to join through your phone?
Yeah, so I'm gonna do.
Well, while Sasha
you could tell them our viewpoint. Yeah.
Okay. Well, while Sasha's figuring that out, it's interesting. Oh, is that your phone? We are experiencing technical difficulties. Welcome to Sasha and
Can
the
you
Cat.
see me? Hear me?
I can
Yeah?
see you
No?
and hear you.
I think it's working.
Wait, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, you need to plug me in because then it echoes back.
Oh, am I still in this one? Hold on.
2021, where things get better. So basically, yeah, we're being a female boss in 2021, you're like, what does that mean? Because I feel like there was this wave before that was just like female owned, female led, whatever, targeting female clients. But I kind of feel like now it's just you're being a boss. You're targeting everyone. Which I think before, I get the purpose of it because, you're just trying to bring up the female boss side. But by only targeting females as your customer, you're like, aren't you like literally excluding another half of your potential clientele? I guess depending, if you make women's clothing, then, But then also nowadays with the more unisex movement, it's like, like you want to be more complete in your description of who you target. So, yeah, I think it's interesting that. I'm sorry. What are you doing?
I had to get my headphones so that it doesn't feed back.
Oh, gotcha. I was like, why are we moving? Yay! Sasha's back.
Oh, gosh. Anyway, I don't want to get too frustrated about my internet right now. But yeah, so I think what I wanted to mention about that too is I feel like part of the whole movement of like women-owned businesses and how important it is and how it was like super buzzword worthy is mostly just because it was all like, we don't have equal rights or equal pay or blah, blah, blah. And I feel like it stemmed out of that, right? But for me and Kat, I think we kind of agree that like no matter what gender or sex you are, it's just a lot of work to be a business owner.
Right. So I think we should differentiate between like International Women's Day, and I think the movement before was just bringing women to be paid equally or to have the same rights as men. A lot of times I feel like that is really applicable in like a playing field where it's predominantly men. Which I guess starting a business used to be predominantly men. But I feel like nowadays so many people are starting a business. And if anything, even more women are starting their own businesses. Like, or at least small businesses.
Yeah. And like traditionally, small businesses are typically like more creative based or craft based or like trade, I guess. I don't know what exact term to call it. But I feel like women usually have hobbies that are more in the realm of things you would see a small business like starting or like a theme around what a business would be doing. And part of me is like, women already have an advantage because we are creative and like in touch with that side of us and can just learn things quickly, or I don't know, there's so many things. We'll kind of get into like the pros and cons later on of being a women owned business or a business owner. But I don't know. I am not a feminist, and we don't have to go down that rabbit hole in this conversation, but um that's sort of our like premise of this conversation is yes, we are women ourselves. We do have our own businesses that we started. And we obviously support women-owned businesses tremendously, but we also just support anyone that is doing any kind of side hustle or project or idea and pursuing it and making it a thing in the world. So,
I wonder about so many of these things. Okay, so I could see like before, in a corporate environment that of course like a job that would typically go to a guy or a man, um, then if it does go to a woman, maybe she's getting paid less. And I'm sure that's still happening today. But
right.
I feel like when you start a business, it's like an even. It almost to me even as a woman, I feel like it's an even playing field because it's whatever you bring to the table, and it's like maybe guys have their own traits that maybe they're good at, finding funds and stuff like that. But women are good at schmoozing. We're good at playing the emotional field. We're good at, especially now, like we're going to talk about that, but there's so many opportunities geared just for women. But like, if you're a dude, are you going to go look for, male entrepreneurship grant? Like, that's so messed up. Messed up, right? Because technically we do have a women one, but it's just so interesting to me that in a corporate environment I could see that, and even nowadays I feel like more. I mean, the last job I had at a hotel was we only had one guy in the office, and like it was like 6 women and one guy, and I'm like, is it male led? I don't know. All the directors of all our departments were women except for one department. So I'm like,
I know. I think that's where the confusion for me comes from when it comes to like championing women-owned businesses or like women in business. Because I feel like I've seen a pretty equal amount of both in my lifetime. Like I don't think I've seen more male bosses than female bosses at different levels. I mean, of any type of leadership. So I don't know. I mean, it's still International Women's Day. So
right.
obviously still appreciate the women in your life because they can have babies. And that's already like way beyond the scope of any comprehension that a man can have of that. So
Yeah.
they deserve a special appreciation just because of that simple biological fact. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, we did want to highlight a lot of resources for women because I guess technically we're like a minority and that's why it counts as a big deal. So there's a lot of resources for women-owned businesses, or if you're just wanting to pursue one or start one in the first place.
And we'll be posting this all in our Facebook community as well. So if you haven't joined that, go feel free to join it. We have the link in our channel. And we always share all our articles and resources that we talk about on our show.
Yes.
But yes, I do agree. So like Sasha said, and we won't get into it, I feel like I'm in a similar boat as Sasha. Not that I'm not a feminist, but I'm also not the super activist form of that. But I will say probably because if you want to talk about like being discriminated against something, I feel like I've lost more opportunities for being too young looking or too small or too Asian before I lost an opportunity for being a woman. So
yeah.
Maybe that's just my experience. But I also haven't tried to, beat out a super high level tech job or something from a guy. So can't speak for that. But, I'm the biggest person that's like, well, if the resources are out there, use them.
Yeah, definitely.
On a separate note that we won't go too far into, I think I am happy this movement came along. I just wish, and I say this with a lot of movements, I'm not going to get political, but I wish there was a solution that wasn't always so one-sided, because I also feel like a lot of times men nowadays don't know how to do shit. because we put so much emphasis on us being so strong and everything, which I do think is great. But now I have to do everything. Now, some of these guys don't know how to fix cars, don't know how to properly do dishes. So, I'm not talking about my human, by the way. These are just some of the things that I've heard. So I will say he's not great with a car. But
I feel like hopefully like a man movement will come out after this one, like when this kind of dies off, like hopefully. But I mean, I could talk about this forever, but I think too, like, and in the scope of just like being a woman-owned business as well, or business owner, we still have our monthly cycle and the potential to become pregnant and have to raise a child. And if your schedule is so filled with your business and keeping up everything with that and just the stress that comes with it, and then you also tack on the biological component of what we handle as being a woman, that's a lot. That's like suicide. So I think that's where it's just good to be mindful of that. I think it's just good to think of why you're doing something, don't do it for a fad or a trend, or just because it's now trending that like women-owned businesses are awesome. Like, yeah, use it to your advantage if you can get the word out better, or if you can get resources and stuff. But I think it's important for women to take a break and let their body kind of heal, especially because of just what we go through on a monthly basis that men don't have to go through. And maybe that's part of why like men have been in these higher positions for longer and stuff. Like, women have had to take a break sometimes. And even if you're like, I don't have to take a break, I'm strong, it doesn't mean you're weak. We're not saying you're weak.
yeah.
Chill.
I feel like we're so against breaks in this very like this is a very fast-paced country, I think. Even
well, men like play video games all day. Like they take breaks all the time, but they aren't like going through their cycle once a month. So just wanted to add that little insert, and not get too far on a tangent with that concept. But take care of yourself. Definitely appreciate the women in your life, because no matter what, they give birth, and that's just.
Sasha's so hung up on this freaking motherhood thing, which is so true though, because it's like you always hear
that's our biggest difference.
Well, it is our biggest difference, but I always think it's like you see women like jump back, they'll go back to work, or like 3 months after, or even less, honestly, sometimes, or even if they're a stay-at-home mom. Just for me, running this shop and staying at home this past year, I'm literally exhausted every day. Like, because there's no stopping, and there's so much housework, and like, I didn't even plan to be at home for this whole year, like it just COVID or whatever. And I'm still exhausted. I thought I would be so bored. I was like, I mean, so I can't imagine, even if you're a stay-at-home mom or dad, it's like, and having a kid, it's like crazy. So then you run a business on top of that.
Yeah.
So kudos to anyone who does that and more, or even and less, honestly.
I know. Treat yourself today and every day.
Yes. And I also wonder, like, now with, the other movements, like the trans movement and all of that, I wonder how this will develop, So, but yeah, let's talk about some of the resources.
Yeah, if you want to, I can't share my screen, obviously, so.
Sure.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, we could just talk about them, because I feel like it's just a bunch of, like, words. Like, it's a lot of reading.
Yeah.
So, basically, there are some, well, definitely always check out the Small Business Association. So, if you're not frequently on the SBA website, definitely keep it as a bookmark or something, because there's always like all these random articles, all these checklists and things, so that you should be looking as a small business owner anyway. But they do have a women's business ownership side, so you can definitely find like places to find mentorship, advice, opportunities, whatever you need from that. So I feel like that's one of the ones. Then there's also getting certified. I was considering this, because when you I was filing for something, and they asked if I had a certification, and there were like 3 different certifications you could get. I'm sure there's a bunch more, but the WBENC, Women's Business Enterprise National Council, they definitely have a bunch of certifications. And it was Upwork. You could say I was a women-owned, like I'm a women-owned business or whatever, freelancer, but I had to have a certification.
Oh, interesting.
So,
And you mentioned SBA, right? How they have like a separate women's part of it.
yes. So SBA
Okay.
and the WENC are the two that I think are most that I would really want to note for me. If you have any other ones you want to say.
From this list, yeah, I mean, I put the link to this that I'm looking at in the chat on YouTube, and we can share it on our Facebook group as well. But truthfully, if you just Google like resources for women-owned businesses, you'll find a ton of stuff. And it does differ per state. So you might want to start with your state and just see what options they have, or even like local universities and colleges. They oftentimes will have different programs for women-owned businesses and business owners.
I've also found a lot of grants like through social media. So
Mm-hmm.
if you follow any, even like a Boss Babe account or like other accounts that are about the female community, they'll often like reshare other grants and stuff. But I even like there are wine companies that will host grants for only female led, or there's a magazine called Mingle Magazine that's more towards crafting and that type of thing, but they even have sections for female led. I mean, naturally that'll be more female centered anyway, but
Right.
it's not limited to that. But I feel like,
And there's a lot of like mentorship programs too for women. So you
yes.
could even start with that. Like if you're not wanting to go down the route of finances yet, you can start with mentorship. And again, just Googling your state and like women based assistance for small business owners, you'll probably find a lot of information that way too.
And to me, I guess like in terms of mentorship, if you're listening to us, not that we have a ton of advice, but I feel like a lot of times we focus on why we're weaker than men. I guess just for the terms of why this even came to be, you know what I mean? But I feel like we should look at our strengths, but also see if something is a weakness, just work on it. You know, I kind of
Mm-hmm.
feel like sometimes we view the weakness and we just blame them as to that's why they're getting ahead. But if we just work on that weakness and build it and make it stronger, then now we're super strong because we're already ahead, everybody. We're ahead, but no one knows that. So if we just work on our weaknesses, that the perceived weaknesses, then we're like freaking superheroes.
Superheroes. Yeah.
Because I guess like sometimes I do see like there's like the pro, right? Pro, we have so much emotional intelligence. Con, we have so much emotional intelligence. So if we don't channel it correctly, like I feel like appeal to other. Let's say I'm trying to get Sasha to be my client. Like appeal to her emotional intelligence, not emotional intelligence like, oh, she really meant this by what she said. Oh, I'm offended. Like, that's a weakness. Like, you're not using that to your advantage, you know? If Sasha says something and
Yeah.
it offends me, okay, turn it around. Oh my gosh, I love your glasses. Oh my gosh, you're a Cancer. That's amazing. Like, turn it around.
Yeah.
So, use
I
your
also feel like
stuff to an advantage.
to that extent, I feel like, and this is like probably too political, but it just came up in my head. But I feel like when Hillary Clinton was running, I think it was almost like people had an idea of how a woman should present herself or how a woman should speak, or, with like a little bit of a softer tone or a little more like soothing or understanding and whatever. But it's like because of the role she was applying for, right? We'll just say it in an objective way. She had to have a little bit more of an objective standpoint on things or an objective way of speaking or whatever it might be. And I feel like in our understanding of like women and men, like it didn't match our idea because women are supposed to be soft and kind and sweet and all
and
that.
not have a history and like be perfect and
Yeah. And so I almost feel like even just if we look at the way she spoke, okay, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything else. I feel like that like hurt her in the eyes of people because they had this preconceived idea of like how a woman should present herself or how a woman should speak or like what they were kind of used to, maybe just from having their mother a certain way or whatever. But I think what's interesting about being a woman-owned business is also like you do have to be mindful of kind of still appealing to everyone because you're a woman, but also balancing what Kat's saying, where it's like we have a lot of emotional intelligence, but we can't just be like appealing to emotions all the time. Like we do have to balance that out by being objective and by speaking in objective ways so that we gain more respect or people actually understand us better, or we don't lose people when we're talking, or so that we can appeal to men a little more so they actually like speak the same language. Like, okay, she's just talking about facts. Cool, I can follow that. Because there are, I think, differences in the way we all operate, but especially like between men and women. And I think it's important for us to be mindful of that, but still own our softness, because that's where the feminine energy is born out of. Like that's our advantage ultimately. And I think men would have that advantage too if they became softer in time or were better at appealing to emotions or having more emotional intelligence or whatever it might be. Because again, that just appeals to like being human. Like it's neither like male nor female, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I feel like, especially like, I mean, now I work for a software company, so I deal with more like tech and engineering terms and like more conversation around objective masculine type of conversation. And I have found it's a little difficult for me to skirt the boundary of like being a woman in that kind of realm, because a lot of the men are in it and they are objective and they do kind of just want to know what the task is and get it done. And I operate that way too. But I still think like, because I'm a female, when it comes out of my mouth, it looks different. It's like, it feels different. It looks different. And I think I've learned that recently, where you kind of have to find a balance of like still showing up for like who you are and what you represent as you, if you're a male or woman, but also learning how to like balance those things.
It is funny because it's like, if you have a harsh male boss, then you're just like, oh, that's my boss. If you have a nice male boss, then you're like, oh my gosh, my boss is so nice. But you have a nice female boss, you're like, oh, my boss is so nice. But you have a harsh female boss, you're like, oh no.
She's a bitch.
There's something wrong with her.
Yeah, like literally, which is wrong. I'm even saying this as a woman, but I think in time that will change. But I think it's also just that maybe like when women are harsh, they're still emotional instead of just being objectively harsh or just objective about what they're saying.
Which I think is something we should like work on, still have the emotional side, but I think that would be, to me, a weakness, because the playing, to me, I feel like people confuse the playing field with also men. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's like, yes, they created the playing field, and yes, we should change it. But at the moment in time, if you want to play the game, you need to play with that playing field and turn it into your own playing field. But you can't just like bring in your own play. It's like with anything, even with a business. Like if you have a new product, nobody understands it. No, you need to play the field and then turn it into your own field. Like,
yeah,
I feel like it's like,
yeah, and I feel like there's even probably been research on how people respond or receive like certain tones that people use when they're speaking. Like, and I feel like because women do have like different ways of expressing themselves in their speech pattern, like compared to men are more like monotone. I feel like that in itself could like help or hurt us. And I think we have to understand like how to best harness even that simple element of just how we speak so that we can appeal to everyone. Right. You know what I mean? I feel like right now with this whole women movement, it's kind of separating men and women. And I don't think that's the right approach at all. So I think I'm hoping in time we learn to just like integrate both aspects.
Yeah. Like equal, better. But we're still different. I try to think, I feel like sometimes
and we
people
should
group
champion
it.
that.
Like we are all the same. And it's like, no, we are all different, but we are equal. So,
But I
oh,
guess
yeah.
we'll segue into the advantages,
Hmm.
um, given that conversation. And I'll link that in the
The chat.
YouTube channel. Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. Do you want to start with the first one?
sure. So there are some pros and cons, obviously, of being a female entrepreneur. Um, but we have this article that kind of states more realistically, not like, oh, the pro is you're creative, which it's to each their own, you know. So these are
Yeah.
more of why it is a pro to be a female business owner. So the first one is the stats are on your side, meaning that more women are just starting businesses and launching successful businesses. I mean, more people are just launching businesses in general, I think, but more women are starting to do that. So that's hopeful. So if you are starting a business, know that the stats are on your side and more women are doing this and doing it well. So go for it.
Yeah. The second one we kind of touched on too, but it's that female entrepreneurs focus on collaboration. And it was saying that compared to men, they're more likely to ask for help or form a partnership or have a team, where men are like more distrusting. I think in today's world, there are a lot of women that are distrusting as well. But they were just saying that women are more likely to collaborate. And that's also an advantage that they have.
Yeah, like even as simple as working with a blogger or like partnering with other companies to, actually launch something together.
Yeah.
So that is interesting because that usually it's very competitive, right? Like you have a business, somebody else has a business, it's so competitive. But being a woman has led to more collaboration, meaning it's a working together environment or a community environment, even if you are competing businesses or maybe competing businesses, but in different markets or different industries. But I guess you wouldn't be as competing, but you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
it's just an interesting turn because that's something I feel like women have had the history of being like the community, the gatherers. There's,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, and that kind of segues into the third point they mentioned too, where there's more mental mentors and role models. But that doesn't mean anything if you're not willing to reach out to these mentors and ask for help. And I do think women are a little more willing to ask for help or just kind of like extend the conversation and start it. And that's super important in entrepreneurship, especially because the community you have and the amount of advice you get and the amount of feedback you have from people that you trust, and also like they understand your industry. I think it's hard to find people that fully get it. You might have like your family and friends that like support what you're doing because they love you and like want to see you succeed, but you can't like have a full conversation with them about your new idea that you had or if you want to launch this or launch that. So I think it's important to have a community that you're pulling from and have mentors, just like a whole bag of them that you can reach out to for different things or at different times. And I do think that that's growing and has grown tremendously since women have become more involved in business.
So yeah, these are things that you can actually use to be like, okay, this
Yeah.
is why I am probably going to be successful.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on the next one, which was emotional intelligence as a competitive advantage. It is a competitive advantage. And so that's why we were saying to look at it like that. Like, it's like I feel like we always know that we knew that. Everyone's always like, oh, well, women have like greater emotional intelligence. And it's like, okay, well, how can we use that?
Yeah. And I feel like it helps a lot with being a good leader. Like, I've met male bosses that did have pretty good emotional intelligence, like you could tell. And the main way I could tell is because they were really good at being a boss, like being a leader. Like they cared about their employees. They made sure they were taken care of. They were super understanding. They listened fully. They gave advice, but also got the job done. Like they were, organized in how they handled business, but they were also organized in how they handled their relationships in their business. And I think women have an advantage at that because we're good at relationships because we care about it naturally, like from a biological standpoint. But if you take it a step further, like it could turn bad. Like we could be too involved in the relationship aspect that we aren't balancing the business side.
Well, I think the
So
biggest thing
again,
that we've always fallen trapped to, which the negative thing is gossip. It's always like women in the
yes,
workplace are always gossiping, which I honestly think is still true. Like
very true.
this is like one of the things that I have an issue with a movement that never talks about strengthening the weaknesses, because I feel like a person that maybe is not a feminist, whether they're a woman or a male or whatever, they'll go to work. Let's say we're in a corporate environment and be like, oh, she wants to be like a director someday. Look at her gossiping with her friends. Like, how could she be a good leader? And it's like, it's true though. You're gossiping with your friends. You don't, guys just don't gossip in general. Like, they'll be like, yo, what's up, man? And that's it.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally it.
And I took this anthropology course when I was at BU, and they talked about how men and women. Oh, so this meeting might time out soon. We'll just see. We'll try to wrap it up in 10 minutes. But it was saying how women connect or like create friendships, create bonds through communicating, like sharing stories, sharing information, sharing personal information. Like the more women do that, the more they feel close to whoever it is. And the way men connect or form bonds or relationships or friendships is through sharing activities. So it's typically when they'll do an activity together. And I think, I mean, in today's world, obviously we all do all of that. But I do think it's true on a basic level where it's like, if you're at work and it's like new employees, you're getting to know each other. Women are more likely to just talk and gossip, even if it's about personal stuff, not necessarily work gossip, because that's how they now feel familiar and like comfortable with the people they're around. Where I feel like men are just like there to get the job done. It's an activity. They're here to share the activity with everyone, but that's it. And I've also noticed, I think men do, look down on that, like on the women that like gossip the whole time at work, because it's just like, you're not doing, just do your job.
Exactly. So it is like to me, it's like, we can't want to gossip and then think, oh, why won't they let us be a good leader? Like, why won't they let us be, the boss or whatever when it comes time? Let's say you're trying to move up in a corporate world. It's like the pro is emotional intelligence. We can relate to our team members, but how are you going to say, oh, so the last 3 years you've been, sharing dating stories with everybody. So how is that going to feel now that you're going to be their boss? So then that's where it's like, okay, you messed up. Honestly. Yeah. If it goes to a dude now, that's on you, man. You shouldn't have gossiped so much. So the next job you have, take it a step back if you really want to be a leader. So I think that's where I'm like, you should work on the negatives too.
Yeah, I think Kat and I are big on accountability and like taking responsibility for things. And I guess like what we're envisioning is a woman that might be at work gossiping all the time, half-assing her job, whatever. And then the guy does get promoted instead of her, and she makes it a male versus female thing. Like, oh, it's just because he's a guy. Like, we're not about that. I think, and I mean, we grew up in Miami, Florida. I feel like it is a very diverse place in terms of like business and professionalism. Like I do think there is a pretty equal amount of male and female leaders in whatever job you have. But I think it's important to just, be aware of how you might be perceived by others or what sort of like role you're playing. And these are more masculine, I think, characteristics when you're in the workplace, is thinking about these things. I feel like women are just themselves all the time, like wherever they are. But I think men do kind of think like, okay, what's my role here? Like, am I showing up for that role? Am I embodying that? Like, am I being a leader? Am I speaking in a more direct way so that it's clear to the person? And I think women are also good at that too, but it's good to kind of think of those things and think of how we can best fine tune those aspects.
Yes. Fine tuning is a good word.
Yeah, it's just fine tuning. We all got it, but we got to just be more like conscious of it if you want a leadership position, I think. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about, just because we are entrepreneurs and that's what our channel's about. But balance is key. There's obviously a lot of advantages. The article also goes into like parenting experience has entrepreneurial benefits. which kind of stems off of the emotional intelligence, I think. And then also that women make great leaders. And I mean, again, I feel like I agree with these things, but I also agree that if a male showed these qualities, they would also be great
Yeah.
leaders. And I think it's just about understanding how to appeal to other humans. Like, I think we can agree, like, any male or female that isn't good at that is probably not going to be a great leader, probably not going to be great at being a business owner or a parent in a
Yeah.
family. So I think it's just important to keep that in mind and
I remember
balance.
watching Meet the Fockers, and at the time, Ben, Ben Stiller, was that who was in that movie? He is a
Yeah.
nurse. And I remember that being a comedic point of the movie
Yeah.
because it was a non-traditional role for a guy. It's so weird to me because we would laugh at that. And here we are, like, if a woman is a freaking CEO of a tech company, you're like, wow, she's so badass. Yet we
That's
laugh at a
true.
guy being a nurse. Like that. I
And
mean, times have
truthfully,
changed, but
no, and being a nurse is freaking hard.
it's
Like, it's a
hard.
commitment. I mean, if a guy could do it, like, fucking kudos to you, because that's like no joke. So I mean, yeah, I think you're right. It's like they laugh at it, even
Or
though
Meet the
it's like one
Parents.
of the
Sorry, not Meet the
hardest
Fockers.
jobs. Oh, right, right.
Sorry, that was the second one.
But yeah, it's a hard job. So it's just like,
Yeah, so I think it's interesting because that would be a guy that is channeling his other side, maybe the emotional side. You know, he's in a women-friendly corporate culture is one of the points there. So it's so interesting
yeah.
that I'm curious to see. I mean, I'm all for women. I am a woman, so. But I'm curious to see how things develop in the future.
I
But
know.
yes, that is our article on some of the pros. Just to quickly recap on some of the difficulties in that we might encounter. So emotional intelligence on the other end was one. But like we said, like Sasha was saying, parenthood. So finding a balance is key. But I mean, not but yes. So just keep all that in mind because now you're just going on turbo, which, you know, let's say you have a kid and you're working full time, whether it's starting a business or not. Yes, you are a champion for being able to complete all these things, but just be careful of the things that you're sacrificing, like maybe time with your kids or time with your significant other that then changes you, changes them, changes the people around you. I mean, my mom is a great person, but she worked so much when I was growing up. I hung out with my grandma the whole time, and on paper, it's like, wow, this woman came to this country. She moved up. She got degrees. She had a great job, had a house, which is amazing, but never hung out with her daughter.
Yeah.
So then it's also like, yes, you want to be like this amazing, like gung-ho person and look at all the things I can do. But one, give your significant other something to do. And two, find a balance. I guess that's what's up.
Yeah, I think finding balance is key. And I come from the whole wellness and alternative medicine end of things as an acupuncturist. So I guess I just see a lot of women like taking birth control early and like, gotta work hard. I'm not having kids, which totally fine. Totally fine. But I guess I see like, we have biological things about us that are just part of what we do in our world. And we can't like fully deny that successfully without there being like repercussions. So I just think it's mindful to it's ideal to consider who you are from just even like a basic standpoint and then how you are in the world and just make how you are in the world fit how you are like inside.
Yeah. So lots of things to think about now that you wanted to be a female business owner. But honestly, I feel like we're very lucky to be a female owner now, as opposed to 30 years ago or something.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
if you haven't
Totally
seen the Netflix show called Self-Made, it's about Madam C.J. Walker, first self-made billionaire, and also person of color. So she definitely was like out there freaking giving hair products to people like back in the day.
Wow.
So Definitely a cool watch. So I think we're going to have to cut it a little short today because of the amazing countdown that you all can see there on the screen, I think.
Oh, you can see it?
Yeah,
Oh
I think it's like literally counting down less than 1 minute. But we'll be back next week with our other topic of types of businesses, like business to business, you know, B2C. I'm sure you've seen all of that and the types of relationships you have in a business and defining your product. Like, is it a product? Am I an artist? Am I a service? Like, so going into that a little bit. But I hope everyone enjoys their Women's Day and celebrate the women.
Yes, join our Facebook group. We'll share the resources through there. And definitely subscribe and make sure the notifications are turned on so that you get updates of when our next live is. And thank you all for joining. Sorry for the technical difficulties. It won't happen next week.
All right, team. Bye.